welcome to the Coeur City Council meeting for September 19, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order. I forgot that. Thank you. There we go. And the clerk will note that all council are present except for Councilman Woody, and he is excused. With that, we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask Kiki to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the first item on the agenda is, well, first of all, do we have any amendments? Nope. Then we have a presentation from Safe Passage, and Leslie Johnson, Director of Development and Communications, is here to do that. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor and council members, we appreciate the time to be here tonight. And I'm Leslie. I'm a native Idahoan here, and Amanda Coeur, our Executive Director, also a native to this beautiful city. Okay.
The password is I love government.
.com.
That's good. Okay, great. Okay, there we go. So tonight we just want to talk to you a little bit about Safe Passage and who we are and what we do. Our mission is to be an agency who provides safety, education, and empowerment for victims of violence and to the community. So we are a nonprofit agency serving all of North Idaho, and we serve victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, stalking, and that's about it. Very difficult topics, but our vision, which I think each and every one of you can get behind, is to create a community that's free from violence. So that's what we're focused on. We started in 1977, and it was really a grassroots effort in 1976 because of the sexual assaults that were coming into the hospital. And there was some staff at the hospital and some neighbors and community members that gathered together and created an incorporation in 1977 called the Women's Center. And there was a home that was designated to take in these victims, these actual survivors of sexual assault. In 1983, we had a shelter that was developed, and then in 1996, we were able to start hiring a little bit more due to this Violence Against Women's Act, and that was around the O.J. Simpson time, so there was an influx of money coming in for domestic violence and sexual assault. In 1997, we received the award for Outstanding Victim Services. And then in 2000, more support came around us, and we were able to get the Children's Counseling Center. In 2003, Friends of the Center obtained a donation, and then in 2005, we were able to move into where we are now. That's on 4th Street, it's a little old building, and we will be rallying support eventually to build something new. In 2010, we changed our name from the Women's Center to North Idaho Violence Prevention Center, and that's kind of what we're known, that name that we're known for. And then in 2012, Kootenai County developed a domestic violence court, and we have been active and a part of that, having a role daily in the DV court with an advocate present at all times. Our services are really extensive. We have our emergency shelter, which we call confidential, and we work very hard to make that stay that way. It's 24/7, 365, and that's for women and children fleeing domestic violence. Pets are also welcome. and because people are known not to leave their situation if they're not able to take their pet. And we also help men. So we are serving not only children, but all the way through adult and anyone. So any person. We have advocates that I mentioned in our court system and that are available on our hotline. And our hotline is our same phone number that you would call, so you can share that with a friend. We have housing support, and housing has been really difficult in our community over the last several years. And so we navigate that, and we help our survivors work through those situations with rental applications and collaborating with other agencies like St. Vincent de Paul. We have prevention and outreach, and that is something that we're incredibly proud of as well, where we're collaborating with North Idaho College. We are in the middle school and high schools throughout North Idaho, and we are also working now on getting into the elementary schools because we know that prevention needs to happen early and often. Our Children's Advocacy Center is we do trauma-informed interviews, and we work with law enforcement as well as Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Those are referrals only, not walk-ins. And we're showcasing Lucy on the slide there. She is one of our newest members to the team. And Lucy was originally trained as a seeing eye dog, but she really likes to snuggle. So she has been instrumental in helping the children that we're serving get comfortable enough to be able to share their story. We have supportive services. So we have support groups that we meet weekly to provide support for those survivors that have walked out of those violent and traumatic situations, as well as life skill classes. And our hospital response, I referred back to the hospital earlier, but we have a 24/7, 365 response team that responds to all the sexual assaults and the strangulations that happen with people walking into the hospital needing advocacy. So we have an advocate present helping in those situations. And then we have our resiliency services, which is the clinical counseling for adults and for children, adolescents as well. And that includes equine therapy. You may know that pets are very, very therapeutic, and we have found that to be very instrumental with the adolescents that we're working with. So empowerment to prevention, this is really key as we look forward to create a community that's free from violence. We do presentations throughout our community, and you can call on us at any time and schedule a presentation. So we do presentations on dating violence and healthy relationships, even something as basic as consent. Can I give you a hug? That's the beginning of teaching our children what it looks like to have consent. We do a Green Dot bystander training in collaboration with North Idaho College, teaching these students what it looks like to observe maybe an unhealthy situation and how to step in and help in a very safe way. So we do jail presentations. We're always at Juvenile Detention Center, and we're at the jail doing presentations because a lot of people who are hurting people have been hurt before. And so we're stepping in and we're educating and we're trying to help recover and build upon. So education and training for community members, agencies, institutions, and churches. We do outreach to private workplaces as well if you're an employer and want to really educate your staff. And we assist with workplace policies and procedures like sexual assault and domestic violence policies. You should have a handout there that talks a little bit about why support safe, thanks Dan, why support safe passage, and that gives you some very startling statistics on what's happening not only within our state, example, 2 out of 5 women are sexually assaulted and 1 out of 5 men in the state of Idaho, and that is only the reported number. So that's a very small number, really, that's being reported. as well as some of the other stats of who we're serving in our community. So, standing hand in hand with the community and survivors, we pave a way to a brighter, violence-free future through education, empowerment, and safety. And that's really what we're focused on as we move forward, not only responding to the survivors who have at one time been a victim, but also working to prevent through that education and empowerment, which is such a critical component. So things that we're doing presently, today, what are we doing? October leads into National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we have our 11th annual Martini Affair that's happening on October 4. You can come out and join us in having an amazing dinner at Seasons Restaurant with friends, helping us raise money toward the work that we're doing. You can also join in volunteering and getting involved in helping in the education and the tabling events. You can invite your boss to have an impact with education and his staff. There are so many ways to get involved, and you can give time, treasure, talents. So that is really about our agency and where we've come from 1977 to 2023, and we have some exciting things happening in the future. We're working with our Children's Advocacy Center to get a national accreditation, which will open the doors for us for additional opportunities for funding. And we're looking toward building out eventually a capital campaign to grow our services even further. So at this point, I'd like to welcome questions, and I have my incredible executive director behind me to help with those.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. You're doing work that's very important, that makes a difference in our community, and we appreciate you bringing us up to date on that. Are there any questions? Christy?
A comment. I just so appreciate your presentation. I started in law enforcement in 1990 in this city, so I didn't get to work with the Women's Center until 1990. But I spent a lot of years investigating domestic violence, rape, stalking, child abuse, you name it. We're a small agency. I think what people will be most surprised is the amount of domestic violence and stalking. It's not just a case here, a case there. It's constant. And the good work that you're doing does have an impact. Law enforcement historically was a little bit, not excited about working with civilians to bring in civilians into the middle of a crime scene. But that's completely changed because of the relationship that you've worked on. And I know today that when they can call an advocate to come out in the middle of the night to help a victim, it's really helpful. And we rely on you, I say we like I'm still there, but they rely on you as a tool. And so I'm just so pleased that Safe Passages has come so far. And so there is a question at the end of all that.
Right.
You've had a number of different residences throughout the city through the years, and I'm not asking where they are or anything like that. But do you have those resources in place that you need to keep those residents up?
Yes, we do. Our confidential shelter, it does house women and children, and so if we do have a man, we do use local hotels.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Good work. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
Dan?
Well, I would also just give an endorsement that
you,
during
Dan.
the time I spent with CONSA and then way back before there at Anchor House and some of the boys that we had that were definitely, part of that cycle. And then at CONSA, very much, hand in hand. So, I appreciate firsthand the work that you do, and one of the many kind of critical pillars for the community that sometimes people don't know. They're out there kind of invisible, but needed. So thanks.
Thank you.
If I could just quickly thank your board of directors.
Yes, thank
'Cause
you.
I know that they put the time in, and hopefully they're watching you tonight, and really appreciate their work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments, and we have one person, Roger Smith, wishes to speak tonight. Welcome to the podium, Roger.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Council.
evening.
I'm Roger Smith, 810 Bancroft Street, right across the street, right across 8th Street from City Hall here. So I'm a neighbor. And I'm going to just want to address the subject tonight of noise, traffic noise, specifically in this neighborhood. And if you're at all reading the Coeur d'Alene Press, you know that this is becoming a big, big issue. And I wanted to be out front a little bit on it with some public comment. Central downtown area, including residents and businesses, have a big problem. There's people that have moved out of the area. There's people that have stopped going downtown to the outdoor restaurants especially. A big problem that needs to be addressed. I live across 8th Street. 8th Street has become a racetrack, mostly on weekends, evenings, in and out of McEwen Park, where people gather and sort of show off their vehicles and the noise they can make going up and down 8th Street. Front Street, also a big problem area. Of course, Sherman also. There seems to be minimal enforcement going on. That's part of the problem. There's already a noise ordinance in place in Coeur d'Alene. It's not a bad one, but it needs to be a little tougher. The fines are quite low. And so there's a new ordinance coming. Thanks to Troy and his staff, there is work being done on developing a new ordinance. This is just kind of a heads up to everybody. I'm sure you probably know about this, but it is modeled after Boise's noise ordinance, which has been working. A very strict, tough noise ordinance with stiffer fines, over $300 in fines and court costs down in Boise. And so together with, I'm asking for council support on the new noise ordinance that will be coming out of staff. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm assuming it's going to be modeled after that Boise ordinance. And so just a heads up that that's coming. Along with a stiffer ordinance, I do feel we need an educational outreach about noise. I feel the city can play a big role with some signage on these streets, quoting certain ordinances. Having an ordinance, a stiff ordinance in place, having some public relations outreach around that new ordinance by the city can help educate people, can help call attention to the stiffer fines, much like they have fines posted in work zones on highways. I think for a while at least some signs citing the stiffer fines along some of these streets would be do a lot towards getting people to either go elsewhere or to know they're facing a $300 fine. I think word will spread quickly after there's a few citations given, and these people all seem to know each other. They gather down here, and word will travel pretty fast that I've ridden a motorcycle, I've ridden motor scooters, I've had louder vehicles, but they can be driven loud or they can be driven sensibly. And that's the word we want to get out to the public through the use of stiffer fines and a tougher ordinance. So another element of the new noise enforcement program, I think, should be a greater presence by police down in this area. There's not a whole lot of a presence. I think a parked police car down in this area could probably do wonders, especially on weekend nights, where they can, instead of going back to some other place to wait for a call, maybe show up down here a little more. So anyway, just a heads up, the community is very concerned about this issue, both the residents and businesses, and we just want your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know we don't typically comment, but I just want to provide some additional information, if that's okay. Mr. Smith, I actually was at a meeting today at the police department. We talked about the noise ordinance and the issues in the downtown area. And I was told that there have been a lot of citations written in the past month. I don't have the number.
Past month, ooh,
Yeah, but we
okay,
could
good.
get that number, but I don't have it with me at the
Good.
moment. And also, there were downtown patrols until just very recently, you know, in the summer, it winds down and they have to be pulled and go out and do other things. But I agree with you that the increase in the fine will probably make the difference.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, announcements. City Council. I have kind of an announcement. On October 4th, the been invited to meet with county commissioners on their desire to have some impact fees. And I am in Colorado at the time, babysitting grandkids, so I wanted to let you know if one of you would like to represent the city, or more than one of you, just check with Sherry.
Okay.
It's October
And
when?
October 4th.
And what's the time?
I'm not sure, but she could, 10? 10 o'clock.
I'll email you too.
I don't know if you want to unleash me on the county commissioners.
Yep, you go for it.
On a Wednesday, I could make it too if you need, so,
Yeah,
We
I
can-
very
we can
much would
tag
like
team.
to.
They can say Dan, and we won't know who they're talking to.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where's the meeting at?
Pardon?
Where's the meeting at? County building?
I'm sure it's at the courthouse, yeah.
Thank you.
Administration
So,
building.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 23069.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Guggen,
Yep.
English,
yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
Okay, we have some personnel rules to manage. We'll welcome Melissa Tosi up to the microphone.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Some exciting personal rule amendments. I just have a few for your consideration tonight. They're fairly straightforward and have been discussed with staff. The first one is specific to Rule 26 for department heads regarding the vacation accrual rate. So there is no proposed changes with
We're not seeing your slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. There it is.
There you go.
Magic. There's no proposed changes with the actual accrual amount. It's based on the service years with the city. That is the proposed change. So the department heads were added to the personnel rules about 20 years ago. And when they were added, their accrual years was stretched out longer than the rest of the employees. So currently, the department heads, for a 40-hour employee, they're the only employee group that max at 15 years, where all the other 40-hour groups max at 10 years. I believe the intent behind that was, at the time, the city was bringing forward that extended accrual timeframe to the other collective bargaining groups in an effort to kind of extend the other collective bargaining groups' accrual timeframe as well. Over the years, that has not happened. There's lots of items within negotiations that have been a higher priority. And in the recent years, the vacation accrual rate has been a very important recruiting tool for HR and for new employees. So with that, I don't foresee any changes with any of the other bargaining groups. So this proposed change is specific to the department heads that would bring their years of service in line with the rest of the other exempt employees, as well as LCA police and the 40-hour fire employees. The next amendment is specific to the sick leave repurchase benefit. And there is no change to this benefit. It's actually, the proposal has to do with just the payment mechanism of it. So currently, the sick leave repurchase benefit, if the employee meets that criteria, there is a one-time payment, usually in November of each year. And that payment runs through payroll, and the employee pays taxes just like on any other payroll. The employer pays taxes, then the employee pays taxes. The proposed change with this benefit is, instead of the exempt employee receiving that taxed paycheck, the proposal is that that payment gets distributed into the employee's HRA Viva account, which is a tax-free benefit. So I provided a payout example, just a very simple example of an actual payout, gross payout of sick leave repurchase. And then after the income tax, FICA, Medicare, PERS, you can see from the employee and employer side that net payout is substantially less. So if we were able to contribute that into the employee's VEBA account, it's, like I said, a tax-free benefit, and they're able to have that entire amount, which is invested into that HRA VEBA benefit, and the employee can use that post-separation from the city for medical, retirement expenses. So it's a nice benefit for employees. And that is only an employer contribution. An employee can't choose to put more in, so it's a way that as an employer we can put more into this account. The department heads, we discussed this in the executive team, and it was unanimous to change the current payment method from the tax check to the VEBA. And then I sent this also to the exempt staff, the non-department head salaried staff, and 87% were in favor of moving that to a VEBA contribution. And then the last amendment has to do with the cost of living increases for exempt employees. So currently in the personnel rules, it says that the exempt employee will receive an annual cost of living of 2.5%. That was put in there about 5 years ago at the beginning of the last Lake City Employees Association collective bargaining agreement. They had a 2.5% COLA trigger each year of that contract. And generally, the exempt employees receive the same COLA as LCEA because it's all in the same pay structure. And so that was put into the personnel rules. This year, LCA negotiated a 2-year contract, so a much shorter contract. So instead of going in and updating that each year, since it's different, the proposal is just to put in there that the annual cost of living increase will be approved by council. So that generally goes through the budget process, and through all that discussion, that increase would be based on council approval through the budget. And then the only other change is just a small housekeeping change that's been amended in the other employee contracts. Our cost of living adjustment has always been paid effective October 1, but we went to a new biweekly pay schedule this year. And that places it right in the middle of a pay period. So we have been amending the other agreements that state when that is to being effective at the beginning of the pay period. That includes October 1st. So those are the proposed amendments. Like I said, they've been discussed with all the exempt employees with no concerns. There's no cost associated with any of these amendments. Really, actually, it'll save the city a little money with the HRA VEBA contribution on the tax side, but no other costs. So with that, happy to stand for any questions.
Questions, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let's start on this slide, since this slide is up, Melissa.
Okay.
So it says the proposal is that you will receive annual cost of living increases as approved by council. So who would make the presentation to council, and what would they base the proposal on?
Well, the proposal is usually what LCA receives.
Okay.
So that goes through the budget, and that's what our comptroller typically puts in the initial proposed budget, and from that you have your budget workshops. And then the final approval would be based on the budget meeting in the beginning of September. That would set the next fiscal year budget.
Okay. So we would see that number, and if we wanted to adjust it, we can adjust it. And I think that's what we asked for at one of the meetings, so I thank you for that.
Sure.
The other question is on your second slide, which is lists all the vacation accrual rates.
Yes.
And so we talk about, we're going from a 15-year, for department heads, down to 10 years, 20 hours per month. My math says that's 240 hours per year.
6 weeks.
6 weeks, that's like, so just speaking from an HR perspective, how do you handle it when someone in a position like a department head is going to be gone for 6 weeks out of a year that has 52 weeks? Is that a big deal?
Well, you have to plan, you have to make plans. We have a trigger that by October 1st, whatever you have over that amount, you have to use it by January 15th or you lose it. So we do have employees, not just department heads, but other employees that end up losing an amount if they can't manage that time frame. Our accrual amounts and methods are generous. Whenever I've done a comparison with other cities, they are generous, but like I said, they're very helpful with recruiting. But the way that it is now, we have department heads that have employees that are earning more vacation that they're supervising, so it has become a bit of an equity issue. And this really doesn't affect very many employees. It's actually only initially two.
And I understand that, so there's that, which seems emotional. But is there any cap put on how much of a vacation they can take at a time? So could someone theoretically take a whole month off?
If that is approved by their supervisor.
But if they're a department head, so that goes to Troy.
Or Troy's going to decide that.
Okay, so there's really no governor on that. Someone can be gone. The reason I ask this is because, so as a councilman, I want to interface with staff. And if I have a question for someone and I find out that they're out for 2 weeks, it means I got to wait for 2 weeks for the answer. And I'm not to say that, I demand an answer right away. It's just I'm trying to figure out how to interface, and if this becomes an issue for you or for anyone else, because I know other department heads may want to ask a question of another department head, or they may want to get something done, and they got to schedule something based on a whole series of, it's like a picket fence of vacations. How do we get this done? Is that an issue for you?
I think it would be very unusual for a department head to take that many weeks in a row. I can't think of an instance that has happened, and it would probably be a unique circumstance, and I know that Troy would make sure that there's an assistant or someone that is in charge on the behalf of the department head.
Okay.
And even going to some of those meetings, so there isn't a total void for that amount of time, but that would be highly unusual.
And I know I'm getting a little insight here. I think this is fair, and I love it as a recruiting tool, because I know we need that. We need good people to work for the city, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the alignment with other employees is good. That needs to happen. We're talking about a small group of employees that, because they're at the administrative level, are exempt. They haven't kept up with the other organizations because you don't have the ability to collectively bargain. But this is my concern. So I'm not, what you propose, I'm not concerned with. What I am concerned with is that because particularly the three of you, not to name you personally, but you're here, you bargain on our behalf for the city, and you do a good job. I appreciate the work you do, but it feels a little bit like a conflict because you're bargaining with LCEA, and you're going to receive the same benefit going forward, at least the COLA, not anything else but the COLA. So I'd like for council to think about this and maybe in the future have a discussion. We might want to look at taking your input, because we need your input, in writing, and then maybe hiring out a consultant for the actual bargaining. It just feels like a huge conflict of interest to now put it in policy that you would receive the same COLA as LCEA. Not that you don't deserve it, it just feels like we should probably have a little something in between those two groups.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and I initially had a discussion with changing that, sorry, I was going into something else to show you, but now I can't get out of it. Initially, I was going to write the proposal to say, instead of receiving an annual cost of living increase of 2.5%, to propose that to receive the same increase as LCEA, because that's what council has always approved for years and years. That's what you've approved. But I didn't want it to come across that way, and there is always discussion in the budget process about our pay structure. Our pay structure goes from 22 down to 1, and all of those LCEA and exempt employees are all within the same pay structure with a minimum and max of every pay grade. So I didn't want to propose that because I don't want it to have a perception that it just automatically happens. And so it doesn't say that we'll receive the same as LCA, it just says what you approve. So really, it could be anything, including nothing.
That's true. I'll get back with council because I think we should probably have a deeper discussion on bargaining moving forward, but I don't have an issue with what you've proposed.
Dan?
Well, I guess to the second issue first, I guess I could see it potentially being seen as a conflict. In reality, I haven't seen, much of that to give me any concern. I'm guessing that the staff that have been involved in the negotiation would love it if we farm that out to somebody, but I don't know that that's a cost that's justifiable. I think that's part of what we do. So that's my 2 cents on that. The other thing, just one thing, then it's kind of maybe a minor point, but I think for employees, it's actually a very good thing that we've got it this way. I was at the county when we were also on the same thing when the new raises came in at the same time. They were like the same kind of 26-week kind of pay period we were. And so on one hand, psychologically, they're all thinking, oh, great, October 1st, we get that raise, whatever it is. But the way theirs was is they got it in the at the first pay period where there was a full pay period after the first of the month. So in that case, it'd be like 3 weeks into the month, and it doesn't sound like much, but if you're at that point where you're going to get 60, 70 bucks a month raise, it's, so anyway, I just want to point that out, that I think that's a reasonable thing, but I hope everybody on the employee teams and us appreciates that it could have gone the other way, so I'm glad you
Yes.
went that way. So-
Yes, and luckily, we have a very experienced payroll coordinator that came from the county and was able to bring some of those points forward when we had the discussion.
Yeah, in terms of employee morale. So-
Right.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome.
Okay, you have a proposal before you. Dan, with regard to the vacation time and taking a whole month, as a former employee, I would never take that much time off because I don't want them to think that they can get along without me.
Right?
I don't know. I work for myself. So. Well, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I would make the motion to approve Resolution 23070, which is approving amendments to Personnel Rule 26, appointed officers and department heads, Section 5 benefits, vacation accrual and compensation for sick leave, and Personnel Rule 27 FLSA, exempt employees, Section 5 benefits, maximum sick leave accrual, and cost of living increases.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Googan.
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Wood.
Yes.
Evans. Yes. Miller.
Aye.
Okay, the next item before us is an exchange with Costco Wholesale. And this is really a big deal because when I was on the elliptical this morning at the Kroc Center, it was one of the main news items.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. And speaking for other department heads, most of us department heads, when we go on vacation, are still in contact with the office every day of the week. And we should be, because otherwise we come back to 500 emails in our inbox. So in any event, tonight I bring before you the first of a two-part process to exchange real property owned by the city with Costco Wholesale Corporation. Here's an overall picture of the Costco site located at 355 East Niter Avenue. Of course, the building in the upper left corner is no longer there, and apparently satellites don't take as many pictures as some people think. The area in the box is what we're talking about. Here's a closer view of it. This odd property line that goes out of a straight line was created in the original plat for the Costco property back in 2003. It's located between the two entrances to the Costco property from Niter. It is solely for the purpose, or it was retained by the city solely for the purpose of accommodating stormwater from Niter. And it is affectionately called the Cattail Pond. The city wished to keep that area under city ownership, at least during the development of Costco, in order to accommodate the stormwater from Niter. This is a slide from the engineering department kind of showing you how the stormwater goes into this area. And from my layman's standpoint and understanding is that the water from Niter flows into the Cattail Pond and then disappears. If you would like a more technical explanation, I'm sure engineering could provide that to you. In 2003, when this was being developed, the city also entered into a lease agreement, a 20-year lease agreement with Costco for Costco to put its stormwater from its property into that pond as well. The lease specifically stated, and this is the language I put here, that the city would exchange that Cattail Pond for an equivalent piece of property that would be acquired by Costco. So over the last 20 years, Costco and the city have been looking for a piece of property, haven't been able to find something that would be equivalent that the city could use. It just did not work out. So nevertheless, the city wants to exchange and still intends to exchange this piece of property at some point. Late last year, 2022, Costco approached the city, and that's because this lease expires in September of this year. And Costco wanted to proceed with the exchange of this property rather than enter into another long-term lease. So in discussions with city staff, it seemed logical to exchange the city's fee interest in this property for a perpetual easement to accommodate the stormwater from Niter. Costco would also at the same time provide a cash payment to the city for the value of that fee interest, which is $30,000. Costco obtained an appraisal for that property. This was done through CBRE in Spokane, a certified appraiser. Viewing comparable properties, the value of between $4.50 and $5 per square foot was determined, which results in a value of $30,000 for the 6,288 square foot piece of property. Now, Idaho law directs how cities can deal with real property. The city has the power and the authority to exchange real property it owns if that property is either underutilized or if it's not used for a public purpose. This property is used for a public purpose as a swale for stormwater, but it is, strictly speaking, an underutilized piece of property. It is 6,288 square feet that is used for nothing but cattails and stormwater. It was determined that the property, or the staff at least, believes that this property falls within the definition of underutilized as contemplated by the statute, and therefore recommends that the city exchange the fee interest in the Cattail Pond for a perpetual easement. The city's interest in this parcel, the easement, is perpetual. Costco's not going to be allowed to use it for whatever it wants to do without talking to the city. And if this Costco decides at some point they might want to build there, put a parking lot, whatever they want to do, they will have to work with the city, and the city will have to agree to a relocation of the stormwater swale. So, according to the appraisal, the city staff recommends that council should declare that the value of this parcel is $30,000. And then the second thing the council should do is set the public hearing for October 17th, 2003, and it's at that hearing that council will decide whether to go forward with the exchange or not. So today, you're just deciding a value and setting a public hearing, and in a couple of weeks, you'll be actually working on the exchange itself. So I will stand for any questions that council may have.
Dan?
Well, just a question. It sounds like it still has an active use from the city point of view for stormwater from us coming in. What about Costco's parking lot stormwater that you said also went in, or did it get diverted when they?
I don't believe it's been diverted. I think it still goes into that area as well.
And it's still, and then that's part of this deal, is it gives them the okay.
They would have the ownership of it. They wouldn't need a
Yeah.
lease from the city
Right,
for
right.
that.
So, okay, basically, things as is, we get $30,000. If they want to do something different, we have to agree to it.
Correct.
Okay.
Amy?
The Costco lease, what are they currently paying us?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what it is. It's a fairly nominal amount of money. Yeah, it's very nominal.
You said $800 per year. 300. Why not 800? Okay.
What is that, 100
Is,
years or 10?
Go
just
ahead.
to follow up on that, I think my question is being said somewhat is, have we renegotiated the lease? And would that be do we have an opportunity to generate some revenue through the lease versus just selling the property for $30,000 and getting the one-time sum?
I don't
have
know
we
if
done the
that's
math?
been discussed. Obviously, at some point, Costco would say, well, we'll put our stormwater somewhere else. You keep that. They do have another large piece of property now, parking lot. So I don't know that that's a discussion that's been had with Costco.
Okay.
Kiki?
That was one of my questions too. And also, if it's $30,000, we agree that that's a reasonable appraised price. Does that come back into the general fund, or does it go into one of the drainage utility?
It would come to the general fund. That was not acquired by the utility. That was a city purchase when NIDR was punched through.
Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Randy, it's clear that probably the property couldn't be used for anything else at this point in time. You're not going to build anything there, but you said they might want to. And so this is my question. When you say that it will come back to the city, will it come back to the city council? Will we have an opportunity to
Yes.
discuss that, or we'll just go to a?
Yes, the lease requires the city agreement. And if they were to use that property for something else, the easement would have to go away. Council would be the body that approves the extinguishment of the easement.
Thank you.
Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Randy, they're going to pay us cash, not Costco gift cards.
I don't know if it'll be cash, it might be a check.
Okay, thank you.
If you could take it in pennies
Just don't want the
or
gift cards.
nickels.
Danger.
Okay, so there's a motion to declare the value.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. To approve Resolution 23071, which is declaring that $30,000 is the value of the real property owned by the city for purposes of an exchange with Costco Wholesale Corporation. And, Part 2, we will be setting a public hearing for October 17th, 2023, where the public can voice their opinions and council will make a final decision.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk take the roll, please?
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller,
Aye.
McGugan.
McGukin votes aye.
Okay, next, Stephanie, you're up here for the next two items. Welcome.
Those are going to set a limit sooner or later, right?
First is an acceptance of an art piece, and then approval for the annual appropriations budget amendment. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Good evening. So this art piece is currently sitting as one of our arts currents that's been at this location now for 2 years. So we've contacted the artist Breezy Anderson and said, okay, thank you for your art. We are ready for you to pick it up. And she said, I want to donate it to the city. It's sitting at a value of $14,000, and it would be up to the council to say, yes, we will accept this piece of art into our art collection. Because it's a donation, we do have the opportunity to place it anywhere in the city. So that is, and if you guys, wanted, had some brief discussions with our director, Bill Greenwood, about maybe some spots where he would want to put it, but we would be open to suggestions also.
Questions? Seeing none?
I do have a question. So we've been getting some pushback on art. Has the staff received, and I haven't heard anything about this piece, has the staff heard anything about this? Because, it is kind of like a naked lady.
Well, I don't know if you recall, like 2 years ago when I was here, this was a piece that people did have some concerns on.
Okay,
But since it's been in place, we haven't heard anything about it.
okay, well, that's good. And also on the placement, so is now the time to suggest where it should be placed?
Of course, you can.
Okay. I would just suggest that somewhere, we have a big city, and I
Yes.
would just say somewhere other than downtown, because it seems like we always put all our art downtown, and we have a big city. So
And
I don't know how
that's-
practical it is, and I don't know where it would go somewhere that it wouldn't get horribly vandalized. But that would
Right.
just be my 2 cents. I don't know what the rest of council thinks.
Vandalism was a concern, yes. And that's kind of, down close to the cities where we have some cameras and stuff to keep an eye on that. And our other art is usually being funded through Ignite, and that's why it's being designated down here at the city because of the Ignite designations, so.
Any thoughts, anyone?
Well, if we're throwing in our 2 cents, balancing those things, I'm not sure if trying to think how much we have, well, there's a couple of things in Midtown, but we are, lighting that Midtown parking lot, putting more access and stuff, so in terms of security, but that might be a nice potential that's not right downtown.
Yeah, Councilmember English, thank you. That's a great suggestion, actually.
I think the foregrounds is,
Out in front of my house?
yeah.
Bluegrass Park and out there.
Apparently, council is not of an opinion one way or the other.
Well, if you think of something, we have time, If you think of a place, please reach out, email me, and
I have no problem with Midtown.
Well, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 23072, approving the donation of an art piece entitled Unrestrained Force by artist B.Z. Anderson to the City of Coeur d'Alene's Public Art Collection.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Seeing no discussion, will the
Discussion.
Oh,
Thank you,
sorry.
Mr. Mayor. That's all right. It's a very nice gift by this artist, and how do we thank her for a contribution? We get comments all the time from visitors about our art and how much art that we have and what a difference it makes to a community. How do we thank her? Will your committee?
Oh, 100%, yes. She has to fill out a donated art form, and when, now that if it gets approved tonight, and then we will accept it. And the Arts Commission definitely sends out a nice thank you and
That'd be great if we
Right.
could sign that, too.
okay,
Yeah, from council.
Yeah.
okay,
Put us something in our area.
Thank you.
sure.
Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Wood,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Miller, aye. Guggen,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, and now we have an amendment to our fiscal year 22-23 budget.
Yes, so this is now the next part of our 22-23 budget amendment. And I know that there's been some discussion sometimes like, why don't we do this mid-year and then do it, again at the end? This is one of them. You're probably sick of seeing me. You have heard about this just a month ago, and here we are. I don't have any changes to what you saw a month ago in regards to the budget amendment. It has stayed the same, but we are required to notice it. Now we're having our public hearing. So there's some fees attached to the public notice, and now back here. So these are the exact same dollar amounts. I don't have anything that has changed in the month since you've last heard about it. So we're back to, do you want me to go through these again so we can recall them before the public hearing, or are we
I
comfortable
don't see
with
the
them?
need.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion, I
did
guess,
you
is there any
open the
discussion?
hearing?
Yes, I was going to slam this through. If nothing's changed, we've heard it, right? We asked
And
our
these are
questions.
all items that have come forward throughout the year that you've been able to review and approve and say, we're moving this money to repair roads, or we're accepting this money from a grant to do this purpose, or just those various things.
So are there questions? Seeing none?
Mr. Mayor, you need to open a public hearing and then
Oh,
close
it is a
it.
public hearing. Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Too eager. Too eager.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing for the budget amendment for the 22-23 budget year. And no one has signed up to testify at that public hearing. So I will close the public hearing, and now it's open for council discussion. Seeing no council discussion, would the council like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 23-1009 once by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will clerk take the roll, please?
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
McEvers? Gookin?
Yeah.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Would you, clerk, please read the title?
An ordinance amending Ordinance 3707, the annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2022, appropriating the sum of $130,417,768, which sum includes additional monies received by the city of Coeur d'Alene in the sum of $6,565,144, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, provide for the publication of a summary of this ordinance, and providing an effective date hereof.
I need
Mr.
a
Mayor, I
motion.
would make a motion to adopt Council Bill 23-1009.
Second.
Motion and a second. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Aye.
Gookin?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dennis, you're up. We'll have a vacation, a different kind of vacation.
All right. Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name's Dennis Grant with the Streets and Engineering Department, and what we have for you today is a vacation request. The applicant is George Lawrence, and on behalf of John Esco, property owner, and he is requesting, let's see, there's that highlighted yellow area. It's a 10-foot strip of land on 4th Street. It's on the southeast corner of Locust and 4th. The address is 1830 4th Street. And he's requesting this to be vacated. The requested vacation has no financial impact on the city. It'll be a benefit to the property owner, and it'll also be a benefit to the city for extra tax funds. Not much, but extra. And The 4th Street is developed to its ultimate width. And if you recall, the property to the south, in November of 2020, we did a 10-foot strip of land that vacated that portion from that, our city right-of-way at that time. And this will, in a sense, match that.
So it kind of cleans up that property line.
Yep, it straightens it out. It'd have been nice to do it all at once, but it didn't happen at that time. And so we are requesting, or the applicant's requesting to do that today. So all the utilities are existing and in place, and there's no foreseeable use for this additional right-of-way. The development review team was informed about this vacation, and I did send out 38 certified mailers, and received 1 response, and it was 4. And that was all on that. And then recommendation is City Council should approve the vacation action per Idaho Code Section 50-1306 and to vacate the property to the applicant George Lawrence on behalf of John Esco, property owner. Any questions?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dennis, this doesn't touch the sidewalk, does it? So the sidewalk is going to be public property?
That is correct.
Good, thanks.
I mean, it's maybe a foot behind it or something like that. I don't know exactly, but yeah. Good question.
Kiki?
Just real quick, I think I know the answer to this, but if there are easements that are underlying under this property when it's vacated, do those have to be touched at all, or do they just remain in place?
They remain in place.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you.
I'd make a motion.
I need to open a
Doing the same
public
Uber
hearing.
Same thing, okay. See, I followed.
You want to get out of here.
I would open the public hearing on the vacation of a portion of 4th
I
Street
know, I don't
right-of-way.
I don't see it here.
And we have no one wishing to testify, so I will close the public hearing. And now,
Usually, in defense of Christie and myself, usually on our agenda, it says open and close the hearing, so
I don't even see a hearing now.
yeah, it's not on here.
All right, I motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 23-1010 once by title only.
Second?
we have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. If not, will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
Googan,
Yeah.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Will the clerk read the title, please?
An ordinance of the City of Coeur d'Alene vacating a portion of the North 4th Street right-of-way in the amended plat of Sims Addition, recorded in Book B of Plats on page 57, recorded as Plat number 57. Records of Kootenai County, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Generally described as that 10-foot strip adjoining the westerly boundary of lots 15-16, block 44 of said plat, commonly known as 1830 North 4th Street, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, and providing for the publication of a summary of this ordinance and effective date hereof.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt Council Bill number 23-1010.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Will the clerk take the roll, please?
Miller,
Aye.
Googan,
Affirmative.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Now, need a motion to recess for our meeting with planning and zoning.
Mr. Mayor, before we recess, I have a question of staff on something that I think we should have done that we have not done, which according to statute, doesn't council have to express our disposition regarding the, oh, we don't have to do it this time because we took the 3%. Okay. Normally, if we don't take the 3%, we have to discuss how to do the, whatever it's called.
Foregone.
Right, so we don't have any foregone this time, so we don't have to do that. I was going to say we could stick that on Monday's agenda if we forgot to do it, but you guys are on. Thanks.
So, would somebody like to move to recess?
I would make a motion to recess to September 25th, 2023 at 12 noon in the Library Community Room located at 702 East Front Avenue for a joint City Council and Planning Commission workshop regarding impact fees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed with nay. Motion carries. We are recessed.